Hey, this is Vu, and today I'm going to be making a question and answers video, and this will be the third installment, I believe, and it's something I'm going to try and do now on a weekly basis. So if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to leave them in the comments of this video, or really any other video. I try and get to as many comments as I possibly can. If you read through the comments in my videos, you'll probably see I get to quite a large portion of them. However, as the videos get older, I can't actually go through my notifications on YouTube because I get so many of them. So I only really reply to the comments on my videos for maybe the first 12 hours or for the first day or two. So if you have any questions, you can actually leave them on a newer video to try and get those answered instead of posting on an older one. I would highly recommend that. Now, the first couple questions I'll answer are about settings. Now, people ask quite often about my view model setting, which is classic, and my crosshair setting, which is a little bit more complex than that. However, you can easily find these settings, and I update them quite often along with my sensitivity and my resolution in my about page, which is youtube.com/voocsgo/about, and I'll put that in the description for you if I can. The other thing people ask for quite often is my config, and you can actually find that on my Twitch. It's twitch.tv/voocsgo, and you can go into chat and type !config, and that will give you my config, and it's actually CFG, not the full config. And I don't have yet in there my config for videos or my config for recoil, but I'll be putting those in the next day or two, so hopefully by the time you see that, it'll be there and you can find that as well. And my videos config just makes it infinite round timer, basically 60 minutes, and the round doesn't end when you hit 0 either. Gives you infinite ammo. It gives you infinite ammo 2, which means generally you'll have 30 bullets and then reload, but you'll never run out. And my recoil config is just simply something to turn off recoil and aim punch. So you have no recoil, no aim punch. And this is very convenient when you're trying to do some bot training, because when I'm flicking the targets, for example, on aim_bots, I don't want the weapon inaccuracy to give me a bad idea of actually how accurate I was. I want it, if I flick on their head and I shoot, it hits if I hit them. I don't want to get a kind of incorrect loop there where I think I missed, but I actually did aim on him. It was just unlucky, or I shot too fast, or something like that. So I have a recoil config where I just hit RRR and that turns it on, or something like that. So I'll post those all in my Twitch as well. You can just go there and find them under that command. Now, the next thing people ask quite often, and I want to make this into a video because it was just such a common misconception, was about my peaks video, my most recent video, where I say basically that holding a expected angle is a bad thing. Now, the thing here is that I think I use the word expected a little bit different than people think I'm using it. When I use the word expect, I mean they peek out looking directly at you. They're never going to look anywhere else. It's not about being a common angle. It's about being an angle where they don't have to worry about other spots and being a common angle. So a good example of this might be these stairs here. If I'm to peek out to clear this spot on stairs, I mean, you do have somewhat of an advantage in that only your head is showing, but I don't think that's enough of a mitigating factor from this range. So what's going to happen is I do this at least, I expect someone to always be there. So whenever I clear out cat, I clear it kind of like this. I clear this, I come out and clear this. Again, expected to be here. Now, this isn't as bad because I've heard you can actually see the shadow coming, and you can actually play a slightly off angle. However, again, it's an angle they kind of expect you to be at. So they'll peek out looking directly at you. Then they'll come over here, again, directly at you. There are no other angles they have to be worried about when they peek towards you, so they expect you to be there. It's not about it being common. It's about it being common and it being an angle where you have very little advantage, because only showing your head doesn't actually mean that much at such a close range. and they don't have to worry about multiple angles at once. For example, car over here, this is an angle that is incredibly common, but I wouldn't say you can peek expecting someone to be there because there are so many other angles someone could be at. So that's the way I use the word expect. I don't use it in the way that common angles are all bad. That's not what I meant. Anyways, next up is the final thing I'll be going over here, and that's the concept of peeking along a wall. And I had a lot of people saying, well, if you have problems peeking along a wall, just peek in front of it if there's something sticking out. And while that is obviously true, you need to avoid these walls with things sticking out. You can avoid it 1,000 times, and if you hit it once and die because of it, it's still gonna feel like a shitty way to die. It's still gonna feel like that shouldn't have been there, and it was just a huge annoyance with no competitive actual, use. There's no reason to have a pillar here. I mean, this is kind of irrelevant because you're never peeking, near that pillar. You're always peeking along like this. This is kind of irrelevant. However, there are things sticking out of common walls, and you can try and avoid them, but not only does it add another thing that you're thinking about, which in your mind is going to make you dislike a map even more, just because you have to avoid those things. Not because, it's necessarily the terrible, most awful thing ever that you need to avoid them. It just makes the map feel clunky. That's why I said the word clunky in that video. It makes it feel clunky. It makes it feel like you need to avoid a bunch of things. You need to navigate in a weird way. You need to change your gameplay to avoid these walls. And I think that's a bad thing because it has no actual competitive advantage. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.